How many people in here would like to be an entrepreneur? Great. How many people want to develop a stronger entrepreneurial mindset? Great. You're in the right place. What we're going to be talking about is the importance of the entrepreneurial mindset. Today, it's a different world. The gig economy is real. How it's going is a lot of contract jobs are being started. So you have to think about how you can add value, not only for yourself, but also the value for the company that you provide services to. So, first thing we're going to talk about is define the entrepreneurial mindset. Let's define that. The entrepreneurial mindset, it's pretty much three things you have to have. It's a business-minded individual. It takes a financial risk. Typically, when you're starting out on your own, typically it's just you. You have to develop all your business by yourself. Two ways you can do it: you can get government contracts, you can do marketing, you can do different sales activities to take your things to the next level. And use the strategies that I just mentioned to have a competitive advantage. When you're in business, you have to have a competitive advantage. There's some things that everyone in this room potentially does now better than most people. You can't just start a business because you like the business. You have to have a competitive advantage. You understand the skills you have. If you don't necessarily have a skill, you start to learn some skills. Are you all familiar with lynda.com, LinkedIn Learning? That's the way. I know a lot of public libraries, they have access to that for free. So it'll teach you really everything. Teach you how to create logos, teach you marketing strategies, teach you how to be a programmer. It'll teach you how to start a short film. Really, whatever skill you want, you can literally just watch that, and within a matter of 10 to 15 hours, you will have a new skill. Now you can take it to the next level by mastering that skill and bring that product to the world and have a competitive advantage. If you're a marketer, start figuring out how you can learn how to create logos for people. Start learning about different sales activities. Start understanding the UX designs, different websites that you all are dealing with. These are value-added services that can distinguish you from the rest of the competition with the world. So some of the strategies that you must know. This is what we're going to be talking about. So there are primarily 4 legal entities that you must be aware of. The first is the LLC. This is mainly for U.S. companies. It's the LLC, the limited liability company. The limited liability company is kind of what it says. It's important when you're an entrepreneur, you must start a business in one of these 4 structures. The LLC, it limits your liability. And what that does is, in case something bad happens at your business, you won't be personally sued. And it's important because if you be a sole proprietor, which I don't recommend, if you be a sole proprietor, if something bad happens to your company, they'll sue you directly. They can potentially make you sell, liquidate your houses, liquidate your stocks. It can go very, very far. So LLC is probably the one I recommend the most because it's so flexible, but it's not necessarily something for everyone. The S Corp is another limited liability company, and that one, you see a lot of that in New York. New York has a lot of S Corps because it's a little more difficult to set up an LLC in New York. New York is very old school when it comes to limited liability companies. You have to put it in the newspaper, you have to get an agent. It's a little more difficult. So you see a lot of people starting S corporations. The S corporation has its limitations. You can't have more than 100 shareholders. If you're trying to go international, you can't have any international investors into your startup. It's within an S corporation. So the C corporation, that's normally when people say they have a corporation, they're primarily talking about the C corporation. The C corporation is really good. A lot of companies on the stock market are C corporations. They just say corporation. And the benefit of a C corporation primarily is because it's 2 types of shares that can be in a C corporation. You can have the common shares, and you can have preferred shares. That's a distinction you must understand. Preferred shareholders, they get paid first before the common shareholders get paid. You see a lot of this when we're going to talk a lot about venture capital and startups. If you have a startup that you want to raise funds for angel investors and venture capitalists, the C corporation will be your friend because the venture capital funds are going to want to invest and they're going to want to be preferred shareholders. So if something bad happens to the company, they have to liquidate the company, shut down the company, the preferred investors get paid first before you get paid. So we'll talk more about that later on. And the business trust is often a legal entity that's often overlooked. If you have if you're going to pass whatever situation happens where you have to leave some stuff to your children, or your children are not necessarily can take care of themselves, the business trust is a great one. So say, for example, you put real estate into a business trust, and then you elect a trustee, and that trustee will collect the rent or do the business dealings on behalf of the beneficiaries, which would be the children. So this is often an overlooked business entity that has tremendous value for people in the right situation. And also just trust in general. We must learn about trust. The living trust is something that we all need to learn about. Living trust is a lot of people use that versus the will. When you think about estate planning and your retirement, people fill out a will. But the will necessarily doesn't have as many benefits as a living trust. One thing the benefit of living trust is private. For example, when you want to administer your will, you have to go to court and that becomes public record. So everyone gets to see all your business. In addition, the will can be more expensive because the executor of the will gets a certain percentage of the value of the entire estate. So a living trust, you probably have to pay a little bit more on the front end, but on the back end, it saves you a lot of money going forward. So those are the main 4 legal entities that we all should be aware of. And also other things, when you start a business, it's important to have an operating agreement. The operating agreement pretty much just tells you how your business is going to operate on paper. If you have more than one owner, this operating agreement would deal with whose role is this. It'll talk about what happens when we're going to close this business. Even if it's just you're solo, if you're only one person that owns the business, it's still important to have an operating agreement because it also just lays down how this business is going to operate. Business bank account. If you have your LLC, you get an EIN number, which is your tax ID number, that's free. You can typically go to a bank and open up a business bank account. A lot of them charge maybe a couple dollars a month, but there are also some that are free. It's important to have the operating agreement, the business bank account, the LLC, because it separates an identity from yourself. Because a lot of times people, if you co-mingling funds with your personal and your business bank account, people will say, okay, you're not being separate. What they'll pierce the corporate veil and they'll try to sue you personally. So these things help create that business separate from you. The U.S. the laws are drafted in a way that in many ways business have qualities of people. A business can open up a bank account. Unless a corporation, that's like your birth certificate. It has your EIN number, that's similar to your social security number. You can pretty much do a lot of things that a regular person can do. You can get business credit. Business is going to take out loans. Business can buy property. So business, in many ways, is essentially a personhood. So it's important to understand it and treat it as something separate from yourself because you have enormous benefits. Typically, if you have a profit for 2 years and you file your tax returns, you typically take it to a bank and they'll give your business a lot of credit. So if you're profiting $50,000 over 2 years and you're showing your pay stub, showing your W-2s, they'll give you a business line of credit for $50,000. So now you're starting to get a different set of advantages. You can save onto your cash and also be able to buy things that you need and start building up business credit. Dun & Bradstreet is a good place to start building up business credit. Sign up with Dun & Bradstreet. Like for example, humans mean like people we deal with Experian, TransUnion, but for businesses, Dun & Bradstreet is typically the business credit entity that we want to register with. And you can also build business credit by dealing with people who report information to Dun & Bradstreet. So certain companies, they report that you're doing really well to Dun & Bradstreet, and that start building your business credit profile. And also you want to collect minutes meetings. It lets you know that you're following your fiduciary duties to your business. You're not necessarily stealing money, flying down on paper, you're not necessarily, you follow what you need to do. So that's important. So oftentimes people talk about, as I mentioned earlier, people think about when they start a business, they think about, the only way I can start a business, the only way I can be an entrepreneur is to start a business. And that's not necessarily true. You can buy a business, what they call entrepreneurship through acquisition. And the first one you want to get familiar with is business brokers. You can Google St. Louis business brokers. And these are people in this area that companies have come to them and say, I want to sell my business. And now they're looking for people to buy their business. And business broker's job is to find buyers for that business. So if you want to be in entrepreneurship through acquisition, go find business brokers. But the key is you got to come to them correct. You have to convince them that you are serious. Because once you convince them that you are serious, they'll start sending you business profiles of companies, and you start learning more information. You have to sign a confidentiality agreement. But they'll start sending you different things about that business, and you start deciding how you want to buy a business. So instead of starting a business, it may not make profit for the first 3 or 4 years, you can buy a business that's already profitable. You can apply some of your marketing strategies, take that business to the next level. You can start applying some of your sales strategies about different resources that you may have, bring your competitive advantage that person may not have, and start taking it to the next level. Another way to finance it, this is also important. Seller financing is very, very important. Seller financing is typically where the seller of the business will give you a loan. instead of going to a bank and having to show credit, having to show all these different collateral, he'll just say, okay, you just start paying me. So that's important to understand that, because there's really no credit checks. The terms of it aren't really as harsh. So these are different financing agreements that you can start financing a business. But it's also important to do due diligence. Just because a person is telling you they're selling a business, you want to know why they're selling that business. What are they hiding? But typically, if a business is profitable, why would you want to get rid of that business? Now, there's a lot of legitimate reasons, such as the person is getting sick, they want to go to retirement. But this typically is a person who's in good health, who has a lot of working years ahead. You want to be mindful of why they are selling that business. And I mentioned seller financing as one way to finance entrepreneurship through acquisition. There are also a lot of government resources as well. There's the SBA. The SBA bank, what they typically do is you go to a regular bank, a lot of banks are SBA approved to give out SBA loans. So figure out which banks in this region are SBA approved to give out loans. And then they fund a lot of things. They fund liquor stores, mainly they fund collateral-based businesses. So in case something happens to that liquor store, having a hair salon, a restaurant, they can sell the equipment to get some of their money back. And what SBA does is that in case you aren't able to get your full loan back, we'll help subsidize some of that. So you still got to meet the criteria of a regular bank, but the SBA, the government, helps give them a pillow. It gives them an incentive to actually provide loans to people. The United States is big on entrepreneurship, so we as entrepreneurs should be starting figuring out how we can create opportunities and jobs for everyone else. What other funding sources? Funding for startups. A lot of money being raised. Last year, that was over $100 billion raised in the U.S. dealing with venture capital and startups. And so it's important that the St. Louis have a pretty good startup community. Yeah. So this is something that you all should be aware of. If you're in marketing, you can start figuring out, okay, how can we create our business in a way that's more marketable to angel investors and venture capital firms? There are two main types of people that you should be aware of when you're dealing with venture capital. Let me mention angel investor and venture capitalist. What's the difference between those two? Well, angel investor is a person that invests their own money. They're typically a person that has relatively high net worth, and they say, okay, instead of putting my money in the stock market, instead of putting all my money in the stock market, I may get 12% return on my investment, maybe. I'm gonna start putting some of this money into some startups. Typically what an angel investor does is they'll take roughly like $250,000 and they'll slice it up in tens. So they'll make $25,000 investments into businesses that are looking to raise capital. And you all have some friends like that. You all can get together and create an angel investor pool and start investing in different startups in the St. Louis area. Not only St. Louis area, also in the Silicon Valley area, also in New York, also in Boston. A lot of it is done through referrals. So if you meet angel investors, ask them, what companies are you investing in? And that's the way they've already did their due diligence in that company, and you can just start investing as well. And that's also for marketers who are looking to raise capital for their businesses that they have, or their clients that they have. It's primarily done through referrals. So you have to get into that angel investor network and realize who they are, because once you know one, you typically start knowing a lot of the people in that area. And venture capital firms, they invest money in others. They raise money from a lot of places, from governments. Saudi Arabia is one of the biggest governments that invest into Silicon Valley, into the U.S. Who else? They invest pension plans. So city pension plans, county pension plans, they invest that. They invest from different charities, universities, endowments. They invest some of that money too, and they return a high return on their investment as well. But the funding cycle for startups is typically they start off using their personal funds, and then they can raise a round for family and friends. These are the rounds for raising capital dealing with startups. There's a family and friend round, and primarily that is you want to get that in the form of a loan. If you're an entrepreneur or think about being an entrepreneur or having an entrepreneurial mindset, you want to be able to talk the language of these entrepreneurs, talk the language of the startup, and say, have you raised a family and friends round? And family and friends, they know you better than most. They can give you terms that can help grow your business. Next is the angel investors round. And as I mentioned, these are people that invest their own money. They typically invest in what they call convertible debt. It'll start off as a loan, but they convert it to equity of the startup at a later date. And then venture capital firms, they invest primarily into those corporations who prefer shares. I mentioned that earlier. They want to make sure that they get paid before you get paid. And after that, you're either selling it selling a business or being acquired by somebody. A lot of times, the exit strategy primarily is either being acquired or it's being put on the stock market through initial public offering. So this is pretty much the startup continuum. But every business doesn't necessarily have to be for profit. Nonprofits employ a tremendous amount of people in the world and in the United States. A nonprofit is a great place to start. But it's also important for nonprofits to be entrepreneurial too, because it's a business, it's just not a for-profit business. So you have to remain a profit. A lot of times nonprofits, they have employees, they have to pay payroll, they have to pay some taxes. We can talk about that. They're generally tax deductible, but they still pay some taxes. And how you typically go about with a nonprofit, the legal entity is a corporation. So you can go to Google Missouri Nonprofit Corporation, you file with the Secretary of State. And then also you get an EIN number, which is a tax ID number. You can open up a business bank account from your nonprofit. And then also the tax form to be organized as a form 1023. So if you have that mindset to do some good in society, a lot of people do, we all should, the legal implications of starting a nonprofit. And also the nonprofits have to be funded. So the first way you can fund a nonprofit, if you're starting from scratch, is with your board of directors. You have to pick a good, sound group of board of directors. And the board of directors can typically, they should be paying money. They should be paying dues to the nonprofit. It can be $10 a month, it can be $5,000 a year, but this is a good funding source to start your nonprofit. Also, other places, you do fundraising events. But when you're doing fundraising events, it's important to understand the return on your investment, return on your time. A lot of times these nonprofits don't need extravagant events, galas, it'll be dinners, it'll be like open bar. They really didn't make much profit. They made a profit, but based on the time they did with organizing everything, they didn't really make a lot of money. So it's important to know, like, these are some of the ways you can do it, but you understand time is everything. Just because the event looks good, a lot of pictures, and you might have met some people, did it really give you that return on investment that you were really looking for, return on your time you were looking for? I've seen nonprofits do things that didn't take too much time. They'll just put in their office, they'll put like a jar, and they'll say, donate money to my nonprofit at their job, at their business. And that's a good way of having a return on your time. You're not spending much time, but you're raising money. So that's important to have your nonprofit funded very well. Also, major donor gifts. If you have donors, one way is through your board of directors, but also through your immediate network. There are people that give money to nonprofits all the time. Typically, churches are nonprofits, and certain people give out their salaries once a week to donate the money to nonprofits. So these are good people to start targeting. From a marketing perspective, figure out who in my network can I target to be able to raise funds. And there are people that do that every week, every Sunday at church, donate money. These are people who have a giving spirit. These people to target towards raising funds for their nonprofit. In addition, there are grants and also planned giving and different things like that. So when a person who's getting ready to retire or getting ready to do estate planning, you can network with lawyers. You can targeting lawyers, estate planning lawyers, and say, hey, ask that person, can they start giving some planned giving? Put that in their will. These are good places to target so your nonprofit can be successful. Or if you're a marketer working at a nonprofit, you can start targeting estate planning lawyers or people who are thinking about retiring. Start targeting them. America is a capitalist society, so we have to think from a capitalistic perspective, no matter what we're doing. That's important. That's what the entrepreneurial mindset is really about. And the entrepreneurship mindset also is about data. That is everything right now. If you're on Facebook, if you're on Twitter, if you're dealing with Google, they're collecting data about you. So as an entrepreneurial mindset, your business should have a data collecting department. Because once you start collecting data, you start understanding about your clients that are coming in, your potential donors or your potential clients that you have. This is a picture of a tweet. The red, the first line is the actual words on the tweet. And then all this other stuff is data that we don't see. That's data. Understanding how you can learn about everything, the APIs, the creation of the account. It literally tells you everything. So data isn't necessarily about Because we know this isn't about numbers or what's going on. It's also about the time zone. It's also about the ID. This is all data that entrepreneurs should be knowing about and should be collecting. And there are primarily three ways you can collect this data. The first way is typically, as we know, you do Google Analytics, or you can collect it from cookies. You start learning about who's coming to visit your website and visit your Facebook accounts. But that doesn't give you a full profile of who your users are. If you're working with other vendors, you can get secondhand data from them. And if you're working, another way is the third-party data, and that's dealing with companies that collect data brokers. And a lot of them are Experian, LexisNexis. A lot of companies out there that their business model is to collect data. So you can buy that data from them. You're a business entrepreneur, and some people come to your website and buying things from you. You'll understand some stuff, but they'll be able to add more information to your user and give you a stronger user profile. It'll let you know about what your buyer likes, what region they lives in. It'll start letting you know a fuller profile of who actually buying your products, or from another perspective, who's likely donating. So you can match that user profile, start targeting other people that meet that user profile, and you have another return, a higher return on your investment. So it has to be a data map for your unique users as well. But when you're buying data, it's important to know the legal implications of data. One way is a data sharing agreement. Marketers, they're buying data. Typically, they'll be licensing data to you. So you have users that come to your business. You have users that have payments. All these things about data. So it's important to understand what a data sharing agreement is. First of all, you have to sign a data sharing agreement. Or if you're selling your data, if you're licensing your own data, you'll be doing it through a data sharing agreement. So you'll be talking about the purpose of it. You'll be talking about how long it's going to be, because it's a license. And at some point, the license cut off. It'll be talking about the frequency of the updates of the data. These are things that can make a company a powerhouse, because you're understanding who your users are more often. You're understanding you're selling data. So if you have your business, so one entrepreneurial mindset is to have your business, making money, generate profit, but you also can be making money. You can monetize data. That's another business, another unique value proposition that the marketers can fully understand and have another value-added services to their clients. So being an entrepreneur is important to not only think about how you can make money, but also think about how you can protect it as well. But this is more defensive measures that you can take. There's not much law about cybersecurity as it will be, but there's some. The FTC is holding people to the standard they're holding you to is the same level the company of a similar size would do if they were in your position. So if you're Google, or if you're Home Depot, you have data breach, they're going to hold you to the same standard of the cybersecurity measures of companies your size. If you're mom and pop, they're going to hold you to that same standard. And in addition, GDPR. We hear a lot about that. If you have clients that are thinking international, you not only have to be mindful of the laws in the U.S., but also mindful of the EU, because they have stepped up their things to another level. And at some point, if you're a business of a certain size, you have to have a data protection officer who is monitoring how you're going to do it. And also the legal implications of cybersecurity records, attorney-client privilege. If you are following the measures, protective measures, and it's still a data breach under attorney-client privilege, you won't necessarily have to give up some of your cybersecurity records. That can be confidential information. You want information on how you're protecting your business to get out into a lawsuit of information. So these are other things of it too. And also a master service agreement. If you're dealing with third-party vendors, you can have, in your master service agreement that you have with these third-party vendors, you can put cybersecurity things that have to have cybersecurity measures, have to have contractual firewalls, and other things like that. So wrapping it up, the entrepreneurial mindset, it's important to understand the legal strategy for business startup, as well as acquisition. We talk about the different capital funding sources, from angel investors, venture capitalists, from seller financing to government resources. And we also talk about some data collection and data privacy. And it's important to understand that this is the best time, in my opinion, to be an entrepreneur, at least have the entrepreneurial mindset. Are you all familiar with the Aesop's fable? I'm reminded that the famous fable of the hare and the tortoise. A lot of times when you start a business or you buy a business, you'll see the hare taking off to the big league. You'll see people getting funding, massive amounts of funding. They'll get into an accelerator program. So they'll be taking a lead, a very fast start. But it's also important to understand about the tortoise. The tortoise took the slow and steady approach. He started learning about different things. He started coming to different conventions and started learning the best practices for how you can be a better marketer, be a better entrepreneur, start thinking. It's slow progress, but it was steady progress. And over time, if you're doing the right thing, though it may be very slow, and patience is a virtue, you will win a race. And it's important to have that mindset as an entrepreneur and as a marketer who's trying to bring value to their clients. Thank you.